Yes, let's talk about the Thames Torso Murders. A warm welcome. He's a man of many talents. He is, for this story, the author of A London Peculiar, A Guide to London's Secret Past, Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. Welcome, Rafe.
Pleasure. Happy New Year, Kevin.
Happy New Year to you. And I didn't realise you were an expert on this. You're an expert on virtually everything. And I mean that in a very admiring way. So this is the story of the Thames Torso Murders, which were going on pretty much at the same time as Jack the Ripper's reign of terror in Victorian London. So we know about what Jack the Ripper was up to. He was 5 brutal murders in the Whitechapel area, mostly of prostitutes, all of whom were horribly mutilated. Meanwhile, lost in the mists of time, but no doubt making headlines back then, was the Thames Torso murderer, who was murdering women, I think, and chopping them up and chucking their body parts into the Thames. So this story was going on at the same time. It's a 139-year-old case. And according to Lucy Worsley, the TV historian, in her new series Victorian Murder Club, the case, she believes, has been solved. She thinks it was a guy called James Crick, who was a bargeman with a history of violence, who went to jail for a while. There were no Torso murders for a period of time when he was in jail. Then there was another one. Then he died and he never got nicked, so he got away with it like Jack the Ripper. But I didn't realise, I think very few people realise that when Jack the Ripper was at work, so was the Torso murderer. Extraordinary.
Yes, I mean, everyone regards Jack the Ripper as the original, modern serial killer, the granddaddy of all those who came later, except, of course, he wasn't, because a year earlier than him, Jack the Ripper started in 1888. The Thames Torso murder started a year earlier in 1887. He killed, canonically, 4 women. Jack the Ripper killed 5, some say a bit more. But actually, there are suspicions that he killed many more people than he did between 1887 and 1889. They think he may have been killing from 1873 down to 1902. Here, where I am, the stone's throw on the river in Battersea, in Vauxhall, but also further down in Whitechapel as well. Quite diabolical, probably more grisly, actually, than Jack the Ripper. For a while, they tried to link Jack the Ripper and the Thames Torso murders because they were happening at the same time. But of course, the modus operandi was very different. Jack the Ripper would, mutilate women's stomachs and abdomens and genitals, whereas this chap was dismembering people. And there was another murderer at this time. London was a rather
Blimey.
place then. There was a chap called George Chapman, who was the poisoner of Borough in South London.
Right here.
And they killed, right where
talk is,
broadcasting from. And they tried to link him with it, but of course, a poisoner and a dismemberer are rather different. But all 3 of these characters were roaming the streets of London. And it is a fascinating story. The person that has been identified by Lucy Worsley is this chap, James Crick. And what happened was the historian working with Worsley simply looked through records of men who had been arrested for committing violence against women. And what happened was he was a bargeman. They basically travelled on the River Thames at a time when the roads were very bad. You had lightermen dealing with good transport and watermen dealing with the transport of passengers. And he had an unfortunate woman who came onto his boat. He said he would deal with her as he had dealt with many other women before on the Thames. Took her under Tower Bridge, where she managed to hit him with a piece of iron. Someone came to her rescue. As you said, he was arrested, sent to prison for 8 years. And during those 8 years, there were no murders. And then when he was released, there was one final murder in 1902 down the river for me in Vauxhall.
That's right.
And he died shortly after that. So quite a macabre story.
1907 he died, yes. Well, let's have a quick look, if you don't mind, Rafe, at Lucy Worsley on her documentary Victorian Murder Club. It was on the BBC last night.
This is the extraordinary, forgotten story of a Victorian serial killer. I'm hunting that murderer down. Is this the Thames Torso murderer?
So, Rafe, do you agree with Lucy Worsley and her accomplices in this investigation that it was probably James Crick? It does seem the circumstantial evidence seems strong.
But that's just it. It's circumstantial. I mean, he's a very compelling candidate. He certainly goes to the top of the list. But unless we have some sort of signed confession or some DNA connection, then we'll have to wait for that. At least they haven't done what they did with Jack the Ripper and start bringing in, you know, the eldest son of Edward VII, or the Queen's surgeon, or Walter Sickert, the British painter. Most of these murders are committed by ordinary Joes. The sensationalism of Jack the Ripper, of course, has brought in every member of the establishment, including Freemasons. At least this is a far more likely candidate to have been someone who would have committed that. Interestingly, of his 4 known murders, only 1 was ever identified, whereas, of course, all 5 of Jack the Ripper's victims were named, and in fact their graves are there to this day where people can go and visit.
And do you have a theory as to who Jack the Ripper was?
Well, actually, as I said, there have been all these candidates. Montague John Druitt was another teacher and barrister, but actually we may now finally have the answer. Because of DNA. One of these ripperologists, a ripperologist is an expert in Jack the Ripper, he bought a shawl from Catherine Eddowes, who was the 4th victim of Jack the Ripper. She was killed on the same day as Elizabeth Stride. Right. Stride wasn't mutilated because someone interrupted Jack the Ripper, so he fled. And in frustration of not having been able to do his dirty deeds on Elizabeth Stride, he found Catherine Eddowes, mutilated her. Her shawl, which was bloodstained, came up for auction. This chap purchased it, and there was also on this shawl the DNA of one of the top suspects in the 19th century, Aaron Kosminski, a Polish butcher.
I've read about him, the Polish butcher. Okay, yeah, go on.
And also called Leather Apron, and he essentially had his DNA was there. So either, because she was the prostitute, either he had a dalliance with her, or he could very well be Jack the Ripper. But it has to be said, it's not the best type of DNA, but it still is. I mean, so, you know, there could be thousands of people with that same DNA, but in that area at this time, I think this could be finally the answer that we're looking for.
Extraordinary. And what an extraordinary story that at the same time as Jack the Ripper, there was another serial killer. And you're saying there was yet another, 3 of them at work at the same time. And we thought the streets of London were dangerous now. Thank God we weren't around then. Rafe, really good to talk to you. And once again, Happy New Year. Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, author of A London Peculiar, A Guide to London's Secret Past. Extraordinary story.